Look at Us Now by Dreamtowns. Read by My Lost and Found. Summary. The next switch happens during English in the following days. One moment, 16-year-old Yaoyorozu is dutifully reciting a passage for class. And then, Momo is there, dressed in a stylish pantsuit and holding a stack of papers, reaching for a phone that isn't there, and eyes scanning the meeting discussion points. Her hand smacks against Shinsou's arm. "Ow," says Shinsou, more out of reflex than any actual pain. Momo drops the papers. "Not now! I have a meeting in 5 minutes!" On a mission 10 or so years into the future, a few members of Class A arrest a villain with a time travel quirk. They switch places with their younger selves, one at a time. It is very inconvenient. This fic is about 4,000 words and 1 chapter. It is rated general audiences and no archive warnings apply. As always, link to the fic is in the description. And on with the story. No one notices the change at first, because Toru's invisible and quiet when she's not in the middle of brewing chaos, until she gets over her shock with a quiet, shuddering breath and slams her hands down on the desk and shrieks, "You're all babies! What the fuck?" "Hagakure." Aizawa's eyes flash. "What are?" He stops, then, staring, much like the entire class, as it dawns on him that Toru, 1, sounds far, far older than the 16-year-old girl that she is supposed to be, and 2, isn't wearing her school uniform, but, in fact, an actual hero costume that flickers in visibility every couple of seconds. Because of said feature, they can see the dust and grime on her hero costume, the soft rips and tears, and, "Is that blood?" Ashido squeaks, already half out of her seat. "OMG, you're hurt! Toru!" "Oh, no," Toru says, over the rising clamor of, "You're hurt! Where are you hurt? Someone get Recovery Girl!" "Fuck! Shinsou is right. Why didn't we listen to them?" Said student in question balks when eyes and heads swivel in their direction, holding their palms up at the attention. "I don't know what she's talking about." Shinsou rebuffs everyone's silent questions. "That villain did have a time travel quirk," Toru continues, like no one spoke, and is far too frazzled to notice the sharp drop of quiet in the room. Shit. Oh God, please tell me my 16-year-old self is not in the middle of... Oh, fuck. Toru presses her hands together and, very slowly, takes a breath. She counts to 10 in the silence of the classroom, then doubles back and counts her heartbeat until it calms, and exhales slowly. By the time she's calmed herself and stopped her shaking fingers, Nezu and Recovery Girl are already in the classroom. She wants to know how they figured out that they might be needed, but, well, it's Nezu. "Hagakure-san," Recovery Girl starts. "Where are you?" "I don't think you should heal me, Recovery Girl," Toru says. "I don't know when the quirk will end, and I'd rather not get dumped back into a fight exhausted like that." Recovery Girl purses her lips, but respects Hagakure's decision. "As long as you don't have any dangerous injuries." "Nope," Toru assures. "It's just some scratches and bruises." Recovery Girl hums, but after wrangling a promise from Toru to visit her if she's still here after school hours, she leaves for the infirmary. "Very intriguing." Nezu smiles. Toru tries not to shudder. "Was it only you who was hit by the villain's quirk?" "Memory's a bit hazy from all the excitement." Toru taps her chin. "But I'm pretty sure... But I know for sure that some of us were hit. Kinda unavoidable. It manifested as some sort of mist." Everyone goes quiet, drinking in the situation. Toru can practically see Midoriya's mind churning as he scribbles down ideas and the like from the villain's quirk. You said I was the one who knew about their quirk. Shinsou breaches the topic quietly, and Toru wants to squeal and wrap them in blankets. How? Well, you hypothesized that they had a time travel quirk. Toru corrects herself, thinking back to the countless meetings they had, official ones in stuffy boardrooms, and unofficial ones in Shinsou's stuffy apartment. But no one was entirely sure. We were working on limited information. Yaoyorozu frowned slightly. So, may I ask why you're pursuing this villain? I'm sorry. Toru smiles, even though they can't see her, because she is not about to tell a bunch of kids, younger versions of her friends or not, that she and their future selves were chasing down the leader of a child-murdering faction. But I'm afraid I can't disclose that information. She can tell that they, her classmates, aren't happy about that. But in the face of Toru's unrelenting quiet and the combined stern forces of Aizawa and Nezu, they don't ask her questions about the mission or about the danger her younger self. For Toru's continued sanity, she'd just call her younger self Hagakure, is most definitely in right now. Who's in a thrice damn school uniform. Almost with reluctance, class lessons continue, though absolutely no one except Toru is paying attention, who takes notes for Hagakure. Nezu seems to have relayed the switch problem to the rest of the staff, because none of the teachers bat an eye at Toru's appearance. During lunch and breaks, Toru stays in the classroom, but assures the others that she's fine. It's with slight guilt that she chews her way through Hagakure's packed lunch, but only a little. She knows her friends will make sure her younger self is safe and cared for until they swap back to their own time. Aizawa just mumbles something about problem children and should have expelled everyone when he trudges out of 1A. Toru can't help the grin on her face. Some people really don't change. In the morning, 16-year-old Hagakure stumbles downstairs, excitedly babbling about her time in the future, with only the echoes of the hero she will become left behind. Denki travels next. 1 minute, the UA staff room listens to Aizawa go over one of Kaminari's essays with him, and then there's a considerably older, and by considerably, it's a good 10 or so years older, Denki blinking, dazed, at the room at large. He's not dressed in his hero costume, not like Toru, but wears a soft, dark purple knitted sweater that is actually a limited edition siren sweater that Shinsou begrudgingly signed for Denki's birthday, which means its worth is doubled if Denki ever wants to sell it, which he never will. Leggings he accidentally swiped from a photo shoot a few years back, and bright, highlighter green, froppy socks. At least, he says into the quiet, hand curled around the white mug in his hands. Wrapped around the mug is a series of froppy in the same bright green as his socks. I wasn't in the bathroom. Aizawa, despite himself, despite the situation, snorts. Once the storm of questions from the other staff members cease, because it's one thing to be told about what happened with Hagakure, and it's another thing entirely to actually see it happen, Denki looks at Aizawa, smiles, and says, "We made sure Hagakure was okay while she was with us, and I know they'll do the same with Kaminari." Aizawa hums. Considering Hagakure had practically latched on to Shinsou that morning, talking about how warm and comfortable and so soft and safe their apartment made her feel. Though there was a bit of clutter, she had added, oblivious, deliberate or otherwise, to Shinsou's bewildered, "What the actual fuck?" expression. "And, oh, you have really cute cats." He was aware that his future students made sure she was all right. Good. The door to the staff room slides open, and Kirishima pauses in the doorway. He stares at Denki for a moment. "Huh," he says. "Well, you look comfortable." Denki just raises his mug to his mouth, whispering, "You're so tiny," before he takes a generous sip. Aizawa rolls his eyes to the ceiling in a silent plea for strength. When he makes his way back to the common room, Hagakure takes one look at him before launching herself in his direction. Denki laughs, a little startled at the action, but gives her a little twirl when he catches her. "So I wasn't hallucinating!" Hagakure claps when she's back on the ground. "Nope," says Denki. Jirou stares at him from the coffee table. "You got tall." Denki sticks his tongue out at her. "You got smaller." "Is that?" Asui blinks at the mug in his hands. "Is that a mug with my hero name on it, Gero?" "It is," Denki says, though he's probably not supposed to, preserving the timeline and whatever. "I'm wearing your socks, too." And then, because he can, he looks at Shinsou and adds, "This is your sweater." "I have a sweater?" Shinsou repeats quietly. "Like, you bought a sweater?" "Limited edition," Denki nods. "I stayed up for 2 days because the website kept crashing." There's a brief, quiet, before the common room erupts into a storm of questions and excited babbling at the idea of having their own merch in the future and people actually buying them. Denki answers their questions as best he can, but he does his best not to reveal too much information. Unlike Toru, however, Denki stays in the past for 2 days. As he, technically, already graduated high school, he doesn't need to attend class. But he does take notes for Kaminari and help out during a rescue simulation. Kaminari, much like Hagakure, wastes little time in pouncing on Shinsou when he returns to the rightful timeline. He doesn't chat Shinsou's ear off like Hagakure did, but he does say a simple, "You're like extra nice in the future, Shinsou." Aizawa hides a grin at Shinsou's look of blank dismay, and they're muttered, "I should have stayed in Gen Ed." The next switch happens on a Saturday. A few students are scattered around the common room, relaxing from homework and studying. There's a movie playing on the TV that no one pays attention to, and Shinsou listens to Kaminari recount something he and Sero did before they blink and reappear someplace else to a familiar voice asking, "Hitoshi, do you want to get those pretzels now?" "Can you pass me my phone charger, Izuku?" There's a sharp silence that makes Hitoshi look up from their phone before they do a double take, having the brief thought of, "Please no villain attack right now," only to sigh and say, "Well, you're not my husband." The sight of Bakugo stuttering a response makes the air much more amused. Then there's a squeak of, "Husband?" from a very familiar, red-faced teen. "Oops," Hitoshi says, not looking apologetic at all, but they smile at everyone kindly. "Probably shouldn't have said that, but in my defense, I wasn't expecting this." Aizawa shuffles into the common room to investigate the decrease of noise and stares at Hitoshi. Unlike Shinsou, who had worn drawstring pajama pants and a sweater that had suspiciously faded letters spelling out Eraserhead, Hitoshi wears a black long-sleeve V-neck, a brown block skater skirt with black buttons trailing down the center, and an oversized jacket with Entropy blazed on the back in a style similar to Letterman jackets. He sighs. Hitoshi tries their best not to laugh, but they probably fail.
Entropy?
Asui tilts her head.
Who is that?
Hitoshi coughs a little. Is it someone we know? Midoriya asks, taking the distraction for what it is. Oh, wait, what are your pronouns? Hitoshi's slightly panicked expression softens into a warmth that makes quite a few cheeks burn. They, them, and entropy is a friend. Another pro? Midoriya looks half a breath away from vibrating. What's their quirk? Hitoshi very deliberately keeps their gaze away from Todoroki, who's doing that pensive eye squint when there's a mystery to be solved, and clears his throat. You'll find out soon enough. When the room erupts into whines and heckling, Hitoshi only gives them amused smiles. You're so small, Hitoshi marvels quietly. So young. Wish I could take some pictures.
Why can't you?
Araraka chimes in.
Does, your phone not work when you're here?
Hitoshi frowns at the black screen of their phone. Well, it's only 20% right now, and I don't have my charger with me. Kaminari waves his hand in the air and says, I can charge it for you. Hitoshi smiles, grateful, and dutifully takes as many selfies as their friends want. They even take one with a disgruntled Aizawa, who wasn't really disgruntled, and a Yamada, who was ecstatic to witness how much they've grown. Kirishima manages to wrangle Bakugo into a couple of photos. When Shinsou returns from the future, they spend the better half of the morning giving Midoriya and a few other classmates bewildered glances. Aizawa really tries not to laugh. The next switch happens during English in the following days. One moment, 16-year-old Yaoyorozu is dutifully reciting a passage for the class. And then, Momo is there, dressed in a stylish pantsuit and holding a stack of papers, reaching for a phone that isn't there as her eyes scan the meeting discussion points. Her hand smacks against Shinsou's arm. Ow, says Shinsou, more out of reflex than any actual pain. Momo drops the papers. Not now. I have a meeting in 5 minutes.
Is it an important meeting?
Ashido bounces in her seat.
For hero stuff?
It's for next year's budget. Momo purses her lips and pulls out her phone. Is it possible for me to send a message? According to her phone, she does have reception. Still, would it go through? She quickly racks her brain over who's currently at the agency and taps out a message to both her secretary and Kyouka. Her breath still, she watches her phone until there's a small, delivered notification by her text. It's sent! Most of the class erupts into cheers. Momo jolts at the realization that, well, she's 10 years in the past. Oh, dear, she says, mostly to herself. Well, it's a good thing I bought my groceries already. Despite the fact that Momo hasn't been in a classroom, save for the occasional guest appearances, in, a decade or so, she takes notes for her younger self, aware of the anxiety that's undoubtedly being set off at the absence. By the time classes end, she's received responses from her secretary, Kyouka, and a group chat labeled Time Travel Hose, the name courtesy of Hitoshi. There's a spam of photos involving a younger Yaoyorozu, now dressed in an adorable sundress and sun hat, gardening with Toshinori, helping Kyouka bake cookies, curled up on the couch with Kyouka and a few of their classmates, the glow of the television on her silhouette. At Ashido's demand, Momo shows the rest of the class the pictures, even though she's well aware she's messing with some delicate time travel rules. When Uraraka and a few others coo over her wedding ring, Momo only smiles. Momo goes through the motions like a hero accustomed to weird circumstances and changes of routine. Time travel isn't the weirdest thing she's been involved in, given the outright shenanigans that Izuku and Shouta seem to get into at times. And that's not touching the chaos that was the self-proclaimed Baku Squad. Yaoyorozu returns by lunch the next day, and turns quite an interesting shade of red at the sight of Jirou, who raises an eyebrow. When Kyouka switches, she's wearing that fucking flower print apron Denki bought her as a gag gift that she pretends she hates, but really doesn't because it has pockets. She doesn't realize she switched places just yet, because she's squinting down at the handwritten recipe and says, aloud, "Shinsou, your handwriting is shitty. Who the fuck taught you to write? What does this even say?" Shinsou sputters at the slight. "There's nothing wrong with my handwriting." Aizawa, familiar with the scribble Shinsou called handwriting, snorts from his spot in the kitchen. Shinsou flushes. "What the fuck?" Kyouka whirls around because why does Shinsou sound like a pipsqueak? And pauses. "You're kidding me," she says, finally, flatly, at the young faces and stares of her peers before she sighs. "At least it's my day off." Damn. She had plans to snuggle with Momo after they baked cookies, and time travel wasn't supposed to happen. Ashido leans forward with a wild grin. "What was Shinsou doing at your place?" "They were helping me figure out a new recipe," Kyouka explains. Shinsou just looks bewildered, and Kyouka can relate. If she remembers her high school years correctly, this was still around the time Shinsou had their "I don't want friends" stance. Or as Hanata liked to say, their early Roki phase. Until the combined forces of Denki and Izuku whittled down their walls. Kyouka still gets a laugh when she remembers Todoroki's solemn expression as he rested a hand on Shinsou's shoulder and said, "You never stood a chance. Press F." And Ashido strangled, "You're using the wrong meme!" from the living room. "New recipe?" "Oh, what kind?" "Were you baking cookies?" "I love your apron." "I'm filing a complaint after this," Kyouka mutters, mostly to herself, but Kaminari overhears and snorts. "I can't believe. I wonder when this quirk will fade." She hears Midoriya murmur, followed by the familiar scratch of lead against paper. "Perhaps the heightened emotions increase the time travel? Maybe it's dependent on how much of the... What did Toru-san say? Mist touches you. Does it have to be skin contact, or will clothing obstruct it?" Bakugo twitches at Midoriya's muttering. Kyouka hums and eyes the green-haired boy. "We still don't know much about the guy's quirk, unfortunately," she answers, and Midoriya snaps to attention. He's like a puppy. "While he's in custody, he's not talking just yet. But we have theorized that since we were all in a small space, the time trajectory of the quirk might have a bit longer before it completely fades." Aizawa leans against the podium. "How many of you were hit? Give me an estimate if you can't give me specifics." "After me, there should be around 3 more to switch," Kyouka informs after a quick recall. "If I remember right, well, it's a bit hazy from the chaos, but I know that Izuku and Shouta were up front when the quirk went off." Todoroki raises an eyebrow. Midoriya blinks. Aizawa pinches the bridge of his nose. "I'm not surprised," he says under his breath. "It's always the problem children, isn't it?" Kyouka's lips curl in amusement. The rest of the class erupts into a scattering of whispers, exclamations, and overall speculation of what they'll be getting into in the future. Some people really don't change, she thinks to herself, as Aizawa regains control of the classroom. By the time lunch rolls around, Momo has sent her pictures of a younger Jirou wearing Hitoshi's kitten-patterned oven mitts, face bright red as she stares at Momo's smile. Jirou returns sometime after dinner, flushes at the sight of Shinsou, and turns bright red at the sight of Yaoyorozu, but remains tight-lipped to Ashido's heckling over the identity of her future wife. Izuku and Shouta switch during math. Izuku is dressed in stylish, comfortable clothing that looked fresh out of a fashion magazine, courtesy of Hitoshi, who refused to watch Izuku buy shirts that said plaid shirt or suit and tie when they turned 17. Shouta, on the other hand, wears old, oversized clothing and is spackled with paint. Izuku grimaces. Thank God I canceled that appointment. Shouta looks unbothered by the change, and no one else has noticed, too busy either napping, Aizawa, grading worksheets, ectoplasm, or taking the exam, everyone else. He picks up the pencil and starts where Todoroki had left off. Izuku stares at the math problems on his desk and grimaces again. It's on the quadratic formula. Izuku hadn't had to do algebra in years. After a small sigh, he picks up the pencil and tries to remember what the hell was going on. When ectoplasm manages to look up and see two fully grown adults taking an exam for a subject they hadn't had to think about in years, says a succinct, "What?" Shouta puts his pencil down with a deliberate flourish. Izuku presses his forehead against the paper and silently groans with muted anguish. The rest of the class either ignore what's going on or are simply accustomed to the random fuckery that comes with being in Class A. Ectoplasm takes the quizzes when the timer goes off, amidst minor groans and mutters. He does, however, mention that when Todoroki and Midoriya return from the future, they'll have an opportunity to retake. It dawns on the rest of the class, who is now there, and there's a stilled quiet before Sero blinks at Izuku. "You got tall," he comments. Izuku gives a sheepish smile. I guess so." "He's over 6 feet, adds Shouta. Nothing gets complete for the rest of the class period. Or day, really. The teachers only laugh and smile in amusement as their classmates try to pry information of the future out of them. Shouta remains tight-lipped. Izuku hides in his old dorm room, knowing full well that he'd let something slip. "No fair," he hears Kaminari whine out.
"Tell us our rankings, cowards!"
shouts Ashido. Izuku pulls out his phone and looks at videos of Hitoshi and his cats instead. Shouta, at some point, acquired cold soba and ignores everyone. It takes everyone a good hour or so to realize Shouta had been switched. Overall, he looks the same, slightly older, with a little grayer in his hair, and there are laugh lines around his mouth. He dresses the same, black jumpsuit and yellow sleeping bag tucked under his arm. It's not until he stares at his homeroom class, blinking slowly, and says, "Either I've hallucinated the last 10 years, or I'm in the past," that everyone realizes the switch took place. Predictably, Class A goes wild. Shouta calms them down like he would any class making a ruckus. Flash his quirk. They quiet in less than a minute, and he huffs, amused, at the way they look like they're about to fall out of their seats in anticipation. Shouta can see the storm of muttered questions floating around Midoriya. Despite the switch, the rest of the day goes on like normal. Shouta reviews his lecture notes and continues where Aizawa left off. He collects homework, He attends the staff meeting that takes place at the second half of lunch and dutifully fends off questions and enthusiasm from his co-workers who are overgrown children. He grades. The only difference is that, well, everyone is 10 years younger. Hizashi marvels at the laugh lines around Shouta's mouth. There are less footsteps paddling about his apartment. He almost asks Hizashi why Eri and Hitoshi's rooms look so empty and impersonal. Things take time, and Shota's aware they were beginning to discuss taking Hitoshi in. It'll happen. Namuri calls him a silver fox at some point. Shouta only rolls his eyes. Aizawa returns while in the living room of his suite. His older self, thankfully, had finished most of his grading. Aizawa only needed to input the grades into UA's computer system. The smell of cooking food floats in the air. Yamada is cooking something for dinner. His stomach grumbles. When he shuffles inside the small kitchenette, Yamada sends him a grin. The prodigy returns! Ha ha. Aizawa rolls his eyes and looks for a jelly packet. How'd everyone take me? Well, Yamada replies. Aizawa thinks he's making a noodle dish. The kids were as chaotic as usual. Aizawa snorts. They don't change. Neither of them point out the fondness or relief in his voice. Did you have fun from the future? Yamada asks, over the sizzle of the pan. Aizawa hums quietly as he wraps arms around Yamada's waist. Come on, tell me, do I have wrinkles? Aizawa snorts. I'm not answering that. Shouta! And that is all for this lovely fic. It's just like such an interesting concept. I've read like a few time travel swappy fics, but not a lot, and this one just has such a lovely take on it. There's no like stakes. It's just, oh yeah, just pop into the past or future for a little bit, and it's just like, oh my gosh, look, you have wrinkles, or you are married, and people are grappling with the fact that they know their future selves or their future friends' selves, and you can infer quite a bit, especially if you're the one who got yeeted in the future. All the blushing with like Momo and Jirou is just so sweet. But no, yeah, I really like this, and like finishing off with Aizawa, perfect touch. Exactly, just like the right amount of everything. I enjoyed thoroughly, and I hope you guys did too. But no, yeah, that is all I have for this time. As always, link to the fic is in the description. Go leave a kudos, go leave a comment. I am sure the original author appreciates it. Go do it. I am watching you. I am in your walls. Do it. Anyway, that is all for this time. I will see you guys next time. Bye! Do it.